Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be doing another episode of Free-to-Play Champion Showcase, and the winner of the most recent poll on my community tab page was actually Nekmothar, but he only won by 1%, and in a very close second place was Gnishak Verminlord. So that is who we're going to be talking about today, Gnishak Verminlord, the Christmas fusion from a few years prior. So Gnishak Verminlord, aka the Rat King, who came into the game, I guess with Georgia the Breaker, is kind of like the Nutcracker Rat King, kind of something going on there. I've never seen the musical. I don't know the story, but I believe that is kind of the idea behind the lore there. But anyways, he is the quintessential bomb champion that most people have access to compared to the likes of like Commodus, the mythical, that very few people have, but some people do have him. But he's kind of what you think of as a PvP bomber in the game. However, he does have a lot of utility in PvE depending upon the situation. He could be a pro, he could be a con. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get through his skills. But he has proven to be an extremely versatile champion across the entirety of the game. So let's talk through his skills. Let's start off with the A3. This is kind of his bread and butter ability, but it is on a 4-turn cooldown, but it grants him an extra turn, so it's effectively a 3-turn cooldown if you want to think about it that way. But it has a 100% chance when booked of placing 2 bomb debuffs on each target for 2 turns, and the bombs placed by this champion, this is going to be on every single skill. For enemies whose max HP is equal to or higher than 200,000, they'll take double damage from the bomb. So, you know, obviously that's not going to apply to champions. That's more focusing on bosses and those types of encounters. The sister ability that usually comes right after the A3 is the A2 here, where it's another AoE attack, but 100% chance of placing decreased attack, which is nice, but more importantly, 100% chance when booked of decreasing the detonation countdown of all bombs by 1 turn, and it can also increase the duration of poisons, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. So effectively, you place bombs there for 2 turns, you extra turn, you come in there, you decrease all of them to 1 turn, so that as soon as either your enemy champion goes, or enemy waves, or bosses go, they take damage from the bombs, which in PvP is typically a fatal blow. Lastly then, on the A1 is a triple hitter, 3 hits at random, that has a 50% chance of placing a bomb debuff on the target for 2 turns. Same disclaimer for the bombs doing more damage to bosses. So he has 2 ways to place bombs. A lot of the bomb champions that exist only place bombs on 1 ability, but he is unique in that he can place it on multiple abilities, and notably one of those abilities being the A1, which makes him really good for Bommal, as we'll see a bit later. Then we have the passive that comes into play here, where every time a bomb debuff placed by this champion detonates or is removed, meaning it could be cleansed as well, you'll place 2 poisons on the target who had the bomb for 2 turns, and these are protected poisons, so they cannot be removed in any way, shape, or form. So that's where the poison element comes into his kit, meaning that you can, if you don't have any bombs out there and use the A2, you can increase the duration of all the poisons. That works on protected poisons, and it also works on any other poisons that might be out there. So yeah, his arena prowess is fairly obvious. There is, of course, a stone skin meta going on in the game right now, and bombs do a lot more damage to stone skin, so he is an effective way to counter that. However, he did kind of see a little bit of a dip in utility because Polymorph came out and kind of killed all forms of debuffing and buff stripping in the game, and now that there's Pinpoint in the game, there's Feral in the game, Polymorph is just less common as well. He's kind of seen a bit of a resurgence with all of those factors combined. So in terms of how I have the champion built, he's fairly unorthodox, I would say, to what you would probably think, and also he's kind of in between builds because the gear to optimize him fully just simply doesn't exist, unfortunately. But right now for me, he's in 4 pieces of Feral and then a couple sets of Perception. But ideally for me, in my account and in my restrictions, he would be in the 6-piece Feral to have the 50-50 chance of preventing a sheep debuff when he's placing his bombs, just because, you know, Polymorph is still a thing, even though it's a lot less ubiquitous. However, the most popular build in PvP for Gnishak Verminlord is, of course, 4 pieces Stone Skin, 4 pieces of Pinpoint. So you can protect yourself from one instance of getting sheeped, and then you have the Stone Skin to keep you alive to hopefully get to your turn. It can be very devastating against one's enemies. So in terms of the individual gear pieces, I have accuracy on the banner. Of course, you need accuracy to place the bombs, and his bombs scale off attack. So we're going to see a lot of attack in and around his stats. But yeah, accuracy on the banner with the accuracy on the Ascension. He is one of my most used champions, particularly in the arena. So you will notice that he does have a lot more ascended gear than some of my other champions, or you may have noticed, I should say. But yeah, attack percentage, we want to max that out. A decent amount of speed as well. You do want him to be relatively fast. On the amulet here, we have an attack amulet. Again, attack is what increases his bomb damage. So you actually want attack amulet on most of your traditional bombers. There are some exceptions that bomb based off different forms of damage, i.e. commonest being HP based. But yeah, triple accuracy there on the attack amulet. This is just for the sake of the feral set. Again, my goal is to get 6 pieces of feral. So this isn't my best attack ring, but it is an attack ring with attack in the feral set. So it's a little bit optimized for that. On the boots, we basically have the perfect stats. They're speed boots, 6-star with accuracy and attack with some flat attack as well. Working on re-rolling this into speed to make him a little bit faster. On the chest, we have attack percentage with some accuracy. On the essential stat with some speed and some accuracy. Perfect. On the gloves, feral set. Really lucky to have these, but attack percentage with speed and accuracy. Not, fully optimized. We got flat defense there, but again, beggars can't be choosers. So attack percentage on the chest and the gloves. Again, we want to maximize his bomb damage. On the shield, we got some speed and some accuracy. This is mainly because it's in the feral set, but just speed accuracy. Same thing here, feral set, quad speed, one of the rare pieces on my account, but quad speed with some accuracy as well. And then here on the last piece of gear, the weapon here, speed, accuracy with some bonus attack to, again, increase the bomb damage. So technically he's not fully optimized. There's a lot more gear sending that can go on, rerolling and whatnot, but nonetheless his total stats at the moment are just under 50,000 on the HP, almost 7,000 on the attack. Don't really care about his defense. He's really squishy. 282 on the speed, and then 748 on the accuracy. So very, very high accuracy. I want him to reliably land his bombs without increased accuracy, but in some instances, as we'll see, I do run him with increased accuracy just to make sure that he does land his bombs against any potential high resistance targets. In terms of a relic, Gnishak is relatively unique in the fact that his bombs turn into poisons, and so the Arachnid Elixir is definitely the way to go. He's attack based, he's a bomb champion, you want to build him with high amounts of attack anyways, and the Arachnid Elixir is going to scale his poison damage based off the wearer's attack by, at least in this case, since this is a rank 5 Arachnid Elixir, 130%. So it makes them substantially more potent, and just for the sake of it, I put the destroying their max HP when he has buffs on him, but that's not too important. But it can help kind of secure, I guess it's good against targets who are full HP. You decrease their max HP, even though they're not actually taking damage necessarily, specifically if they're in stone skin. But you're reducing their health pool such that the bomb is more likely to finish them off. You want to think about it that way, but we also get a little bit of accuracy from that. In terms of blessing, synergizing with, kind of the Nell type of mindset, he has lethal dose on him. For me, it's only 2 stars, so he is getting the bonus of the attack, but we're not really getting the maximum potency from the poison damage. So ideally he'd be 3-star or higher, but just haven't managed to get lucky with that yet. And then in terms of masteries, they're pretty unique because, again, he's a bomb champion, so he doesn't deal traditional forms of damage, but we do want the offense tree mainly just to get Blade Disciple for the extra attack. That's more bomb damage, and we don't really care about the rest of the offense tree, but the support tree we do care. We do want him to get as much accuracy as possible, more turn meter for placing a lot of debuffs, which of course he will definitely do, lore steal for the stats, and most importantly, Eagle Eye for the extra accuracy. Again, you need accuracy to land your bombs, and this is definitely a PvP tuned Gnishak build. So for PvE, you probably cap out at maybe like 500-ish accuracy, and you could probably do everything in the game. But for PvP, you can never have too much accuracy. All right, so here we are in Classic Arena, and I wanted to showcase 3 different ways that you can kind of use Gnishak. They're all in the same build, of course, but just kind of more like offensive, defensive, and kind of highlighting the different ways you can go about using him. So again, if you were to have him in a stone skin build, this is kind of more of the situation you'd be in. I guess going into a bomb champion is potentially bad, but this is an example of a team where we know they're going to go first, and so we're kind of playing it safer, building a go second team around him. In my case, I'm using Necret to protect him, but again, if you're building him in stone skin pinpoint or stone skin feral, then you might be able to protect him from enemy bombers and the like. So let's go ahead and take on this team. So we're effectively immune from the enemy guy, so I don't really have to worry about him. But yeah, just again highlighting the fact that if he's on a go second team, you somehow tank them because you're sitting under stone skin. You just come around, you bomb them, and it's basically GG from there. And as soon as she takes her turn, she dies. So Gaius is obviously a relatively squishy champion. He's kind of like Gnishak, his base stats. He's an attack based champion who's low defense and all that stuff, so he's easy to kill, as we saw there just with the double AoE attacks. But in most cases, you're dealing with tanks and whatnot that are going to be a little bit more resilient. So if we wanted to go more on the offensive. We wanted to take out a really tanky team like this team of all mythicals, even though they're not that threatening because there's not really a win comp aside from, I guess, Nice. But he's not bad into Nice, as we'll kind of see here. But this is another good example, or this is an example of more like an attack form where you're going faster than the enemy and you kind of set the table. So I have Arbiter placing increased attack. Of course, that will help him increases damage. We have Weaken out there, but they're mostly under Stone Skin anyway. So everyone's under Stone Skin except Mikage, and then Pop. They're all going to die to all of the bombs. So you do want increased attack. Ideally, you can get increased accuracy alongside that with him because that increases the chances that he lands the bombs. And yeah, boom, boom, boom. Pretty easy way to farm champions in Stone Skin if they have no other form of protection, some protected debuffs or, block debuffs, a cleanser, high resistance, etc. But yeah, increase attack, increase accuracy are definitely things you want to pair him with if possible. And lovely to note that there are 2 free champions that are perfectly synergized with him, that being Mikage and Arbiter. And Mikage more specifically brings the buff strip. So in the case of maybe there is block debuffs out there already, maybe Lightning Cage can kind of combat that a little bit nowadays, but she can strip off whatever immunity might have been there, place the Weaken, which does amplify the damage of bomb, so that would be ideal. But if you're comparing Weaken versus Stone Skin, the Stone Skin multiplier is better, so you want them to actually stay under Stone Skin in most cases in some fights if your plan is to bomb them. And the last way I wanted to show them is just going into the turtle teams. Of course, these are very, very prevalent as a defense. People just kind of throw them in there and expect to just win and upset people. But I have a way to combat that myself, and that is just kind of this team here. So we're protecting ourselves with block damage. Unkillable works as well. We have the lockout from Fabian to kind of protect us from any of their skills that they might want to use to kill us. I guess we happen to steal Stone Skin there from Leo. But yeah, block damage prevents us from dying and to any and all of the counterattacks from the Leo. He might counterattack there, unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. Unless they kill Arbiter. Actually, I guess that's a little bit worse. It's fine. So we'll win this slowly but surely. Unfortunately, that was just a bit of bad RNG. Sometimes, Arbiter can do a lot of damage, apparently, with their AoE attack. But I guess Fabian stole the Stone Skin from Leo, so that made it a bit harder. But anyways, we still win. It's fine. But, in the ideal case, we place the bombs, we're protecting ourselves with block damage, and they all take their turns, and they just die one by one. And we don't have to worry about Leo because we're sitting under block damage. We got a little bit unlucky there with the Leo being right on the edge, or someone being on the threshold, and Arbiter kind of brought them below after Gnishak used the double turn. That is one thing to note, though, because Gnishak does take a double turn, you are at risk after he decreases the duration of the countdown of the bombs. He is susceptible to dying immediately after that because block damage are unkillable. The maximum duration is going to be for 2 turns across all champions, at least that exist in the game at the time of this recording. Switching gears here, let's talk about him versus Bommal, which is definitely one of his best use cases in Doom Tower. This is a team designed around the one-shot Bommal strategy, so we have a lot 3 ally attackers in the team. That allows him to abuse the fact that he can place bombs on his A1, and we can stack up Bommal with bombs, provided you have a high enough level of attack, and you do want increased attack and ideally Weaken for this to work as well. But if you're able to land enough bombs off the chances from his A1, and then you also have the bombs when he places his from his A3, then you should be able to kill Bommal in one shot. So let's go ahead and see this in action. You can see it's a relatively quick team, under 90 seconds. Majority of the time is actually spent in the waves because we're so designed for the end game or the end result of the fight. We don't really have as much power in the waves. And if you want a more of a deep dive onto this particular team, there is a video live on my channel, the Raid Starter Pack series, where I kind of deep dive the mechanics of this particular team versus Bommal specifically. But yeah, so we are free to use his ability there because it takes us a while to kill the first wave. We do save his A3 though now for the boss, and then slowly but surely we work our way through this. Cleopteryx is kind of coming in there and dealing with this, but this is technically, depending on upon how long you've been playing, this is technically a fully free-to-play team because Farrakhan the Fat is just an epic. Mikage, you get her eventually. Gnishak was a fusion. Cleopteryx is a daily log and reward champion, and Lonatharil was a previous fusion as well. Granted, his slot could be any other ally attack champion. As long as you have 2 or 3, you should be able to make it work. And yeah, Mikage is unique in that she brings increased attack as well. So she does both roles, increased attack as well as the ally attack. So there, we did the first ally attack. We got the Weaken from Cleopteryx's A1. That's primarily why she's on the team. Right now, we have 3 bombs after 2 ally attacks. We have the third ally attack here. We have 4 bombs, which is fine. And then Gnishak places his own. That's 2 more. And then he A1s. And then, yeah, basically full debuff bar, a bunch of poisons, a bunch of bombs, and Bommal just instantly dies. GG's. So So yeah, that is the Bommal one-shot strategy. Very, very easy to pull off once you can get it going, assuming you have a good enough build on your Gnishak and a proper team around him to support that end goal of the ally attacks and the bomb placing on the A1. In terms of other areas where you can use Gnishak in the game, like I said, he is extremely versatile. He's not necessarily made for dungeon content, but he can work in a lot of dungeons. Dragon comes to mind because bombs turn into poisons. You still get the bonuses of dealing extra bomb damage to other bosses, but Bommal is particularly susceptible to bombs, so that's why it works a lot better there. But again, just having a bunch of protected poisons is good in general. Again, Dragon comes to mind. Normal mode Ice Golem, it works really well. But the one caveat there is that because he can place a lot of bombs between his A3 and his A1 especially, he can end up stacking out the debuff bar entirely with poisons, which means if you need decreased attack, for example, to survive, you might be more likely to die and or wipe, especially in Ice Golem, because you fill it up the debuff bar with a bunch of poisons. There's no room for anything else. You get a counterattack and then your team wipes. So there's kind of a trade-off there. If you're going against bosses that are generally faster, or they can kind of cycle through turns, or they can't have their turn meter manipulated, i.e. Dragon, then it's a little bit more consistent to kind of run through the turns and run through the debuffs. That way you don't have that same problem. But in a lot of instances, you can manipulate turn meter, and so it's very, very easy to stack up the debuff bar with poisons, and thus you don't have room for decreased defense, weaken, decreased attack, or anything else you might want to place out there. When it comes to faction wars and other wave type content, technically the enemy combatants are relatively high HP, so usually above 200,000, so you will get the bonus damage from the bomb. So he can work in faction wars. In fact, I've used him in many of the faction wars wave and the Curse City alike, so he can work there, but he again is very, very squishy, so you're going to need something to kind of keep him alive or pick him back up if he dies. He's a very, very easy target, and he's usually the one who gets targeted. We talked about him in the arena. Of course, he works in all forms of arena. He works in live arena. I've seen him a lot there. I've used him sometimes depending upon the enemy. I've used him in tag team arena. I use him in classic arena. So anywhere and everywhere there's stone skin, all forms of arena, he can be useful. Clan bosses, not really his thing. He's more of a barely a boss encounter type of champion, but mostly kind of wave content arena, and then Bommal specifically, so we're kind of supercharged in the Doom Tower. Curse City, same logic as faction wars. And then Siege, he can be useful in Siege. That is a form of PvP. If you have a very fast and potent Gnishak, there's very, very little the enemies can do, especially if you start restricting them to skinwalkers only or something like that in a Siege team. So there you have it. That's going to conclude our free-to-play champion showcase for Gnishak Verminlord. Let me know in the comment section down below how you have yours built, assuming you have him on your account. This does bring us to the end of our showcase double feature, so check out my community tab page after this video goes live to vote on the champion that will be selected for the next free-to-play champion showcase, because of course the champions selected for this series are voted on by you guys, my lovely viewers. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.